Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about how you can safely taper antidepressants. So the subject of this whole video will be about tapering antidepressant medication. So we'll get started with the presentation here. The problem is basically a lot of people are depressed, and medication isn't necessarily the answer, but a lot of people go on medication to try and find a solution to their depression that is affecting their ability to operate on a daily basis. So 12% of people in America take antidepressants. Women are 2 times as likely to take antidepressants. Europeans are actually 3 times as likely. So it turns out mental stigma is actually protective of mental illness, and Asians are the lowest risk, partially because of that, at 4.8 times lower than Europeans in terms of their risk for depression. Withdrawing from antidepressants can be challenging. So we're going to go through ways you can improve your odds of successfully tapering. It's not a guarantee. So there will be about 20% of people who have a challenge even using best practices when they try and taper, but the large majority of people should be able to taper successfully, especially using these tips in this video. And about half of people actually have no trouble whatsoever withdrawing from antipsychotics, so they have no withdrawal symptoms basically at all. That's about 40% who have no withdrawal symptoms at all. And so we'll start with how common withdrawal syndrome is. So as you can see here, treatment duration is on the bottom. Withdrawal syndrome gets more common with time. So you can see at the bottom, the x-axis, it says treatment duration, 10, 20, 30, 40 months. And then proportion of patients who have withdrawal syndrome is about 60%. And with moderate to severe withdrawal syndrome is about 40 or 50%, which is the square. The round circle is those who experience any withdrawal syndrome. So you can see in the first month or two there is very little withdrawal symptom, but if you've been on the medication for a year or two, withdrawal syndrome is quite common. But yet again, you should note that there are about 40% of people who have no withdrawal syndrome. So this video won't really be necessary for them to watch because they're not affected by issues withdrawing from their antidepressant. Different antidepressants have different risks in terms of how common withdrawal symptoms are. You can pause this video if you want and look for your antidepressant in the list here. But this list is likelihood of withdrawal and severity of withdrawal syndrome on the left. Severe withdrawal and frequent withdrawal symptoms are this top bar here. And then the next bar is moderately severe to moderately frequent withdrawal syndromes. And that includes these medications on this list here. And then fluoxetine, you can see, is a less severe, less frequent withdrawal symptom. That's Prozac, so which is a common antidepressant. And the minimum lowest risk is agomelatine. And then there were some that were unknown in terms of their risk of withdrawal symptoms. But you can take a look at this graph, see where you are. This might give you some idea of how difficult it will be for you to withdraw successfully from your medication. Though I did not get percentages or frequency in numbers. So I love to share numbers with people. So this is just kind of an anecdotal inexact demonstration of what you could experience withdrawing from your medication, or how common withdrawal symptoms might be for your medication that you are on. Okay, so this is from a study of protracted withdrawal syndrome. So these were people who had trouble withdrawing from their medication. All of the people had trouble withdrawing from their medication in this study. Some people, once again, will not have any issues whatsoever withdrawing from their medication. But in this study, it was all done on people who have trouble withdrawing from their medication. And the symptoms they experienced were mostly anxiety, some depression, emerging suicidality, and agitation were reported by 81% of people who had protracted withdrawal syndrome. Somatic symptoms on the body were mostly headache, fatigue, dizziness, brain zaps, visual changes, muscle aches, tremors, diarrhea, and nausea were reported. Some of those symptoms were reported by 75% of people. 44% had sleep problems, and 32% had cognitive impairment of some kind. And so that gives you an idea of what withdrawal, symptomatic withdrawal from antidepressant can look like. It's largely agitation, depression, emerging suicidal agitation. I mentioned that already, but and headache and stuff like that. But it can be quite severe. So once again, some people will not successfully withdraw from their antidepressant, which is unfortunate, but it's a reality that is present. So for some people. This is just giving from another study. It's talking about the difference between withdrawal syndrome and emerging symptoms of your actual illness. So if you have withdrawal symptoms, usually include a constellation of unusual neurophysiological symptoms appear, such as electrical sensations, zaps, or sudden onset of dizziness, pain, nausea, or insomnia. If these are present with no other accountable medical factors, the condition is likely withdrawal syndrome, even if emotional symptoms are also present. Patients will often describe physiological or emotional symptoms as new or exceptionally severe. I've never felt this before. But withdrawal symptoms tend to surge irregularly as waves and windows, while relapse of the original condition will be more consistent in pattern and take longer to gradually develop. So it can be a bit of a roller coaster, as this paragraph describes, withdrawing from antipsychotics, and it can lead to kind of a severe reemergence of depression or suicidality or other symptoms that are worse than originally, but if you can get through it, you can emerge healthier on the other side. So I do encourage people to try withdrawing from their medication if they feel like they're in a secure and safe environment to do so, and if they feel like their illness is properly managed using lifestyle modification and other supplements and social changes. So I do generally think you're better off obviously not being on medication than being on a medication, because the medication is kind of an indication that you're not healthy. So it's just better to be all around as healthy as you can be. So the solution to these withdrawal symptoms is the simplest solution is something called hyperbolic tapering, which is just actually a fancy word for tapering slowly the medication. So, and hyperbolic means you taper faster at the start and slower at the end. So the medication dose is more effective at lower doses, and at higher doses the brain receptors get saturated with the medication. So at high doses the medication is not as effective per milligram, but at low doses is much more effective per milligram. So you basically start tapering a little bit faster, and then as you get towards the end of the taper, you taper slower and slower. And I'll go through an example here with fluoxetine, aka Prozac. So this is a graph showing the dose is the center column, and it goes from 20 down to 0.1. And the effect on this is the effect, the physiological effect on the neuron in terms of how much more serotonin it produces. So it has an 80% effect at 20, and then you see it drops by 3 milligrams, and that has a 79.36% effect. So it's 0.64% more effective, less effective on a 16.8 milligram dose than a 20 milligram dose. But if you look at the bottom, this is an example of why hyperbolic tapering is important. If you look towards the bottom, from 0.2 milligrams to 0.1 milligram, which is only a 0.1 milligram change, there is actually around a 2.5% difference in effect size. And at 0.1 milligram, there's still 11% effect. So the graphs here show this. What you want to do is have a constant decrease. So this graph, top right graph, is describing the columns on the left, and it's showing over time how you want to slowly decrease your effect of the medication every day. And the graph below that shows how you do that hyperbolically. So you can see how you decrease the dose faster over the first couple days and slower towards the end. And that gets a constant reduction in the effect, the physiological effect of the medication, which is healthier and easier for the body to adjust to than if you decrease your dose by 1 milligram a day from the start to the finish. It's better to do 3 milligrams at the start and then 0.1 milligram at the end. So in order to get a safer withdrawal trajectory. So this is from the Ashton manual schedule. This is an example of tapering. They recommend tapering 10% reduction per week, or a 15% reduction per week in medication dose. And you can see these tapering periods are quite long. So a longer taper is generally considered safer. And these are examples of strips. So each strip is one pill a day for 28 days in different doses. And the top one goes from 40 to 27 milligrams. Strip 2 goes from 27 to 18. Strip 3 goes from 18 to 12. Strip 4 goes from 12 to 8. Strip 5 goes to 8 to 5, and so on and so forth. So, but doing a 336-day reduction schedule isn't absolutely necessary, though if you're conservative or if you're cautious, it might be warranted, but it might be a better way. But how this company, which is, I recommend this company, it's taperingstrip.com, came up with some of these graphs here. So a shout out to taperingstrip.com. If you are considering tapering, do check out their website, because it has example trajectories for tapering for different antidepressants and antipsychotics and benzodiazepines also, but today we're focusing on antidepressants. So this is their regular schedule. Typically, Tapering Strip tapers over 2 months or 3 months. So usually 2 strips are used, and you can see example strips here, and their dose reduction here, which the starting dose of fluoxetine, 40 milligrams or 20 milligrams, and the dose reduction schedule. So usually they do quite quick. So it would be a 56-day reduction in dose, and you go from 20 to 4 milligrams, and then the strip 2 would be from 4 to 0 milligrams if you started with a 20 milligram intake. And that's the middle bar there. Okay, so this is how tapering went from basically if you tapered without the strips and you just kind of quit cold turkey. The top left graph here is an example of quitting cold turkey, and it's the percentage of people that had bad withdrawal symptoms or not very bad withdrawal symptoms. So you can see without strips, about 45% of people had very bad withdrawal symptoms. But with the strips, about 40% of people had it went very well. The tapering of the medication went very well, and only about 1% it went very badly. So it's not a good idea to quit cold turkey. I've heard anecdotal conversations about how severe side effects can be if you quit your medication cold turkey. But if you taper, the tapering for the vast majority of people goes quite well. So you can see out of 1 to 7, about 70% had a 1 or 2, which is a fantastic result. And here you can, the graphs below talk about the severity of the withdrawal symptoms, and you can see about 50% had a 1 or a 2 in the severity of the withdrawal symptoms, whereas if you quit cold turkey, about 80 or 75% of people had a 6 or a 7, which is very severe in terms of withdrawal symptoms. So the tapering goes well. If you taper slowly, you get less withdrawal symptoms. So this is a summary of that. Success rates for hyperbolic tapers. There's a 72% success rate. 21% had given up trying to taper. So there is about a 20% group of people who will not taper their medication successfully and will have to continue to be on either a low dose of the antidepressant or a regular dose of the antidepressant. Hopefully you can get to a low dose, but that's not always guaranteed either. So average of 2 strips were used. 56 days was the average tapering period. Again, if you want to be more cautious, you can taper over a longer period. And in this study, 7% were still tapering at the time cutoff for the study. And we'll go to the success of tapering trajectory. For some reason, men were more successful than women. That might be because women have stronger emotional psychology than males do, but I'm not sure why that is exactly. But males are twice as likely to withdraw successfully as females. The duration you were on so if you were on it from less than 2 years versus more than 10 years, so you can see if you were on it for more than 10 years, that's 4 times as hard to withdraw than if you were on it for less than 2 years. Number of previous attempts. If you had 1 previous attempt, you're 1.624 times as likely to successfully withdraw. So you are more likely to withdraw at the second attempt than the first attempt. But and then if you've had more than 3 attempts, you are a little bit less likely to withdraw successfully. And improving your odds. So it's not just about hyperbolic tapering. You need to be in a good mental space, but you can also use some of these tips here. So sometimes people aren't producing their own serotonin. So you need the building blocks in your brain to heal your body from the damage caused by the foreign synthetic drug that was in your brain. So you need the building blocks to be present to build the serotonin naturally. And you also need the building blocks to heal any damage that was caused. So I do recommend free-form amino acids. They're readily absorbed, and they do help with brain zaps and other withdrawal symptoms because they help the body to produce everything it needs to kind of heal itself in a natural way. Stomach acid. So if you can't absorb protein because you have low stomach acid, that could be an issue. Stress could be another issue. So betaine hydrochloric acid can enhance stomach digestion. Digestive enzymes may help. Tryptophan is a serotonin precursor. So if you're getting towards the end of your taper, it might be nice to naturally produce some more serotonin. So you can consider taking things that naturally increase serotonin instead of synthetically increasing it through a drug. And this way your body can adjust the amount of serotonin that is produced a little bit, depending on how smart you think your body is. But I generally think your body is smarter than some people perhaps give it credit for. So you can do 5-HTP, that's another serotonin increaser. You may need serotonin precursors like folate, magnesium, vitamin D, B6, zinc that are needed to build serotonin. And Pure Encapsulations Seraplus has some of those. You can find those at any drugstore also, or a natural supplement store also. Lithium orotate. So if you're getting super moody, you can take some natural lithium at 1 milligram to 2 milligrams, and that may help. These are some examples of what allowed people to taper successfully. So 1 woman could withdraw after increasing her stomach acid. 1 man needed 5-HTP and lithium. 1 woman needed vitamin D, and omega-3s may help. but there are a wide variety of reasons why you might have difficulty tapering. So in theory, you could do some blood work and try and find where you're deficient in minerals or vitamins, but yet again, just doing the hyperbolic taper was successful in 72% of people. So you can try the taper. You can try taking some of these supplements. I do recommend free-form amino acids. I think they help quite a bit. So I would suggest purchasing them from True Hope or another reputable company. But vitamin D is always helpful. And in my other video, I talk about ways of mitigating depression naturally, and vitamin D was a key for that. So if you do have depression, do look at that video. I should have mentioned that sooner, but anyway. So Jordan B. Peterson, this is an example of how hard it can be to taper off medication. Jordan B. Peterson spent 8 days in a medically induced coma in Russia to get over his benzodiazepine dependence, and he spent 28 days after that in an ICU. So it can be no cakewalk to withdraw from medication. So now we'll just do a summary. So it's a hyperbolic taper, rapid at the start, slow at the end. Then you supplement cell building blocks, proteins, vitamins and minerals, good fats, all help with the taper. Then you some lithium or adamantine sulfate may help, so you can consider adding some lithium. And here we are. If you do have depression, please check out my other video. There are many ways of fighting depression that are more effective than the standard of care today. So exercise, sunlight, vitamin D, fish oil, a whole bunch of things can be used to naturally combat your case of depression, and they're actually more effective than taking a miracle pill. So there are miracles in life, but they're not usually come in pill form. So the idea that you can pop one pill and be better is a fallacy, and you really need to work with your body in concert with its natural abilities to heal and to tell you what your body is feeling like, and then you respond to that and give your body what it needs, and your body should be kind to you. So I will link the video for my depression video up above, and you can check out that video. Okay, so that's the presentation today. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you gleaned some information that will help you get over or withdraw successfully from an antidepressant. Do make sure you're in a good, safe, socially cared for environment before trying to withdraw. I think most people should withdraw successfully with a hyperbolic taper. Again, about 40% of people don't even notice when they stop taking the medication. But to be safe, hyperbolic taper about 72% taper successfully. Then you can use some of these free-form amino acids, some vitamin D, some fish oil, some brain building blocks, and that should get you to a place where about 80% or around 80%, maybe more like 77%, 76% withdraw successfully from antidepressants. And then there are about 20%, 21% that will have to continue taking antidepressants once they've started taking them, and which is unfortunate, but it's a reality. But once again, I wish you health, I wish you happiness, and please like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you glean some interesting or useful information that you can apply to live your best life. And once again, have a great day. Cheers. Take care.